Here at Fantasia, we explore what it means to live a more imaginative, intentional, authentic life, one conversation at a time. And I like to talk with people who have done the work, figured some things out, and are living life intentionally. And I also like to talk about big picture ideas that apply to all of us and also dig into some specifics. And my guest today fits all of that. And I think men and women certainly have different problems. And today we're stepping into deeper waters with Joshua Fineman, the founder of Mensch, a soulful initiative that invites men to unplug from the pressures of modern life and reconnect with what truly matters: so inner stillness, brotherhood, purpose, and presence. Joshua's work blends ancient wisdom with modern vulnerability. And whether you identify as a man or simply love one, this conversation is going to be a call to slow down and come home to yourself. Welcome,
Thanks for
Joshua.
having me, Laura.
Sure. So, what is Mensch and what inspired you to create it?
Well, that's a big question. Well, Mensch, the actual definition of Mensch, there's a couple. In German, it means to be human. But I grew up in a Jewish household, and it's a word commonly referred to someone in Yiddish who really it comes across as being a good person. And it's typically used more for men than women. And actually, when I looked into the definition of it, because I loved that word, and sometimes I was called it, sometimes other people I know were called it, it means a person of integrity. And integrity really is at the core of the work I do. And what I mean by that is very similar to what you said. It's about helping to bring men back to who they really are and step further into who they really want to be. And I began my journey in this world about 6 years ago, and through serendipity discovered a man named Kenny and his men's group, and I kind of fell in love with finding a group of men that I could just take the armor off with and just be my full self with. And I moved from that into facilitating with his community. He's still a big part of my life and has become a mentor and supervisor for me. And Mensch kind of rolled out of that. And it started off as being a space online where I was really just replicating the magic of what I'd learned with Kenny. And it slowly evolved into what it is now, which is a in-person, in nature community of guys 2 miles down the road to me at my retreat partner's site. And the idea and vision really for it is that we form these local tribes of men who live within a couple miles of each other, and we take them into nature and we move our bodies and swim in water and sit around a fire pit, and we take the armor off and share. And tribe one is my local tribe, and then with enough time, when this garden blossoms, there'll be different tribes of local communities of men around the world as well. So it's a space where men can come to hang out and be real and dive further into understanding who they are and seeing the ripple effects of what happened when they then go back to their families and their friends and their loved ones and their colleagues, and be with them more intentionally.
I love everything that you've said, and there's so much that I could speak to about that. But first, I want to say, what made you realize that you needed something like this? So, what was
Yeah.
calling you to that? Because I think probably a lot of people, they have a
Yeah.
checklist in their head, like, okay, I'm supposed to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
da 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 da, and you do that thing, and you're just like, there's got to be
Yeah.
something else. What was that? How did you get
Uh,
there?
well, I mean, I was a couple of things really happened in my life that changed my perception of what's important. The first was my mum getting in a really terrible car crash about 8 years ago when I've got 3 children, and when my eldest was a few months old, my mum got in this really bad car crash. Thank God you wouldn't probably know that looking at her today, but she was on death doors for a few months in hospital. And I remember 2 weeks into that experience coming home from the hospital, but I was running a creative agency in the advertising space at the same time. And I remember coming home from work and I had this glazed look in my eye and I looked exhausted. And when I shared with my wife that it was to do with what was going on with my business partner and a challenge we had with a client, she kind of looked at me with a newborn child in her arm and she just said, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, your mum's dying in hospital and you're telling me problems that you've been sharing for the last 8 or 9 years with me. You got to get some help with this. Like, something isn't adding up. If something as significant as that has happened in your life, yet what's consuming your mind is this other area, then you probably need some help. I didn't think that I was on the edge or suicidal, and, therapy felt quite taboo. So I didn't think, oh, I need therapy. But the idea of seeing a coach was quite nice, really. I was like, oh yeah, I can think about the future. And there was probably still a part of me was like, oh, they'll be able to fix this problem I have in my life when it comes to my identity around my work. And that began a daisy chain of events for me. And when I look back now, the challenge was loneliness, a heavy, heavy weight of not just responsibility, but the weight of not feeling enough, and of a need to prove myself, prove my worth to others, whether it was my dad or my brother or my friends or my wife. There was a need to prove that consumed me. And so, yeah, going and starting that, and it was this really lovely lady called Lara, and she opened my world up to the possibilities of what happens when I understand myself. And then from there, I was introduced to Kenny at some point, and then introduced to group work, and it just kind of slowly built from there. So, in a nutshell, it was death and realizing my mortality, having someone give me permission to find other places to help myself, and then seeing this character that I'd become who was desperately trying to prove himself, and that I didn't want to be that person. And actually, that was having a real impact on who I really was and the people around me.
Glad you brought up death. That's a big thing for me too. And why do you focus on that?
On what particularly? Death.
Death.
There is no greater topic to focus on for me. Death has become a very liberating subject, and it's very much at the core of the work I now do with men, whether directly or indirectly, and whether in a one-on-one capacity or in a group capacity, very much getting people to really consider what happens when they die. And when they die, what is it they want to be remembered for? What is it I want to be remembered for? What is it that I might regret? What is it that I won't actually beat myself up about? What is it that I would actually be able to forgive others for? It's the great equalizer in life. It's the really only thing that is certain. And I think in my old life, and still sometimes when I can get caught up in the stories of the shoulds and trying to prove myself, it's very easy to forget that. So death for me is just this like amazing way of helping me really see what's actually important. So like if my son comes in and says, Dad, can we play football? And I'm writing an email, my brain might go, I don't want to do that because I want to complete this email because I want to build a great business. And actually there's this other part of me which is like, well, when I die, am I going to regret saying no to playing football with my son or soccer with my son? Or am I going to regret not sending that email? And
Right.
99% of the time, the answer is that I didn't spend more time with my child.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you work with men. So, what does masculinity mean for you?
So great question. And to be honest with you, it's a question I still sit in. What does it mean for me to be a man? What does it mean to live a healthy masculine life? And like I've read all the books and I've sat in the question and I've understood Jungian archetypes and what it means to be to be in the healthy state of groundedness. And I could reel off like some hypotheticals to you, which feel quite true. I think I'm just moving more towards an answer of for me, being in a healthy masculine place means being just very open and compassionate and grounded and aware that I'm here in service of others and the world and bringing the best out of other people. And I think I feel most powerfully, I have a natural feminine energy. Like I'm kind of have this life in me that, I want to bring joy. But when I find I'm in my, for the sake of the conversation, masculine, it's when I'm very slowed down, and it's not my fiery energy. It's a much calmer way of being, and I notice it comes up most around boundaries, and it comes up most around being able to be with someone else in the most heightened state of anger or fear, and still being able to see them and be with where they're at and not look to fix it or change it, but just to be with them where they're at.
And how do you think that men became disconnected from each other, from
Yeah.
masculinity? How did that happen?
It's funny, whenever I'm sitting in these questions, I notice a part of me that wants to say the right thing, that wants to get this correct, because it's such a big question. And I go right up into my head, and my mind comes from a place of fear. And I'm fearing if I don't say the correct thing as someone who's in a position of leadership within this space, then all of a sudden I'm a fraud and I'm wrong. And what I notice from noticing that is that's probably what the problem is with a lot of men in the world right now, is the
Yeah.
need to prove ourselves, is the need to be seen as right and put together, and that we have answers. If I was to break that down, like biologically, it's we've become a society that is so focused on strategy and achievement and goals and left brain thinking that we have completely lost connection with the magical other part of ourselves, which is about oneness and beauty and freedom and expression and just being together and being with ourselves and being and feeling enough. And I think that's probably at the root of a lot of problems that men have. And we had a very specific role to play as cavemen. It was to protect and provide and allow the or be with the women we were with who could bring up the offspring from a survival perspective. And the reality is that we don't need, we've replaced it with work and money and thinking that that's another version of protecting
Mm.
and providing. But I think we're in this weird space right now where like that's not even needed anymore, brilliantly. Like men aren't needed in that capacity anymore, like in most Western society. And that's very like, but I need to prove myself. And so we're still caught in this space of using the blueprint of what we're meant to be doing and then fighting it and not being so sure as to how we protect and provide anymore. And even letting go of the notion that we don't even need to do that anymore. I think that's really scary for a lot of guys. It certainly was for me.
So how does going out in the woods, sitting in
Yeah.
the water, being by a fire, how
Yeah.
does that help
It's an
with other
amazing
guys?
question, because I just spent 48 hours with my wife this week in a forest doing nothing. It was just trees and water and a guide and a very simple bed under a tarpaulin canopy. And there was no doing, you know, there was no workshop, there was no goal. It was just about slowing down and being in that space. And whilst my coaching and group work, there's slightly more structure around conversations that we have that men don't often get to say, actually, even just being slowed down and not needing to do anything. I can't tell you like from my logical brain why it works, but I can tell you from my experience of it and from the men who come around it, there is this deeper knowing of like, oh my God, I'm enough. I'm just being here with other people is enough. And sitting around this thing that we've been doing for thousands of years that I don't have in my life because I live in a concrete jungle and I go into an office and I work on a laptop and I'm on my phone all the time, but you're taking me out of that. It's just restorative and re-energizing. It's funny because my wife had quite a bit of resistance to doing this thing we did this week. It's like massively out of her comfort zone. And so just noticing the barrier that she had to doing it and then the impact it had when she actually did it and the aha moment of wow, like maybe the answer is in slowing down and stillness and not in doing more or in climbing another mountain or in having to prove, etc., was incredible to witness. And that's the same thing I see in men. Is there's a lot of resistance from a lot of them in the build up to doing it. Oh, I'm not going to know anyone, it's not going to be safe. What do you mean I'm not going to be really like planning something? I'm just going to be still or moving my body or sitting around. Like there's just all of these narratives that go off in their head. And then once they get there and, we do a variety of things either in the body or we have conversations around how we are feeling in that moment and what's going on for us. And we notice, oh, we're not the only ones who are feeling this way. It's just like it's the light bulb moment of, oh wow, like I'm not alone and I don't have to prove myself as much as I thought because these people accept me exactly as I am.
It's interesting to hear you talk because you're saying a lot of the things that I
Yeah,
say. So it's like, oh, I'm talking to myself in
yeah,
a lot of ways. Not everything, but I think there are people who are noticing that you don't have to go to a retreat where there is this itinerary and we're going to do this for an hour and this for an hour and everything's so
yeah,
structured and you can just sit there and do nothing. You can sit there and
100%.
be. And yeah. So I've been doing sacred travel for
Wow.
over 20 years and have just started incorporating that same thing because the magic is in the being.
Well, it's that classic line, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And to feel human, to feel the thing that everyone is chasing, which is peace and fulfillment and calmness and love. Like it comes from the place that the mind does. It's not rational. It's not what the mind thinks. It's like, what do you mean to get there? I need to do nothing. Like that doesn't make any sense. What do you mean I don't have to try or force? That makes no sense. But it's wild. I mean, and it look, and as I said, this is it's a lifelong journey of unlearning this stuff. Like I'm still at times in the struggle myself. Like I came back from this beautiful 48 hours in nature, and within a few hours, I get on LinkedIn and I see a post from someone and I'm like, oh, shit, I'm not doing what he's doing. And like, the voice just poof, like it's there again. And so yeah, I think offering this space is there as this way to just come back slowly but surely to remembering that it isn't that. um and I say, when it comes to integrity isn't about being perfect. It's not about always, the aim is not to be in full alignment. Like that's impossible. Like let go of that. The aim is to come back to it. The aim is to find ways to come back to yourself as much as possible, because part of our makeup is designed to not be that way. Half of our
Yeah.
brain, which we use most of the time, is literally designed to keep us within a little box.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny actually saying it out loud. Is I often wonder, like, I wonder if this translates for people that just don't get it, because sometimes I find that hard.
That's funny. Yeah, because yes, the same. So I observe, and I'm wondering if you do too, that there is a growing hunger, a need for this
Yeah,
authenticity and meaning. And yet the things that you and I talk about, it
yeah,
doesn't register, it doesn't click that and you could say blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It doesn't go in like this
Yeah.
is what you're
Yeah.
talking about. So how do you
Yeah.
convey that?
So it's funny because I was asked to give a talk to some talent and people leaders about how to help men in their organizations. And one of the big conversations we had is, how do you even communicate it? And I've noticed there are a few things with men that they are drawn to generally, and there are a few things that they aren't drawn to. And then there's like a bigger piece as well, which I'll come on to, which I think um, helps me remember the bigger picture. Um, so I think we have a bit of a challenge with language at the moment. I think there are words like vulnerability, toxic masculinity, um, even like mental health spaces. For a lot of guys that I meet who range from struggling artists to multimillionaire CEOs, that's not what they're necessarily looking for. They're not looking for spaces to be vulnerable. They're not looking spaces to combat toxic masculinity. In fact, just think those words are quite problematic. What I find that men are generally seeking is clarity, purpose, belonging, adventure. Men want to go on a journey. They want a band of brothers or a fellowship, that they are the hero in their journeys and they want to feel like they're moving towards something. And so when I generally communicate to guys, and it's not a inauthentic expression of what I'm doing. It's just I've learned that inviting them into something that feels exciting and an opportunity to grow or expand or step further into who they know they really are deep down, amongst others who are on the same path, I think generally helps them step into it. The other thing I would say that I think has become really important for me to recognize is takes people a long time to hear the message, to digest it. And I am having guys now reaching out to me who have been reading my content for 3 years and who have known me since childhood. And so they know that it's okay to trust me. But this is still very, very foreign in the culture that we live in. So I try to remember that we are anyone who is trying to share messages about this world. We're all we're all planting trees here, and we're planting seeds, and it takes a while for those seeds to grow, and they're not going to. They may not be that. I think there's a great quote which is, "You may never sit under the branch of the tree that you plant." Something like that. You may never sit under the tree of the branch of the tree that you plant. And I think that's the thing to remember is like it may not be me who helps this person. It may, they may not hear it. Like I've had that. Like I've had loads of people sharing something with me, but it just happens in one moment with one particular person. I don't just hear it, I receive it. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's been there all this time, but I haven't seen it. So I think the combination of using language that are aligned with what men are really seeking right now and inviting them in and remembering that we're planting seeds, and that's that it takes time, is really helpful. And then the final thing that I'd say that is just really helpful in this world is because it's still quite taboo. It's like personal development is niche and still quite taboo in many areas. And then like men's work within that space is even more niche.
Mm.
It needs championing. Like there are a lot of good men out there trying their hardest with the tools that they have, and they're trying to be responsible and they're trying to show up. And it's really, really hard. And so these men need witnessing and championing, and the men who are trying to help see them need witnessing and championing as well. And I think we need to try and see this space as vital and valuable as other niche spaces, whether it's women in leadership or communities for any kind of minority. Like, this is a space full of possibility of what it can bring, as opposed to like a dangerous space that may not work.
Do you have an example of how you have been changed by this, or maybe somebody that you
Yeah,
have
for
worked
sure.
with?
When I started this work, I was unfit. I had a very low sex drive. I was constantly in my head. My wife was my therapist. Not good. I ran to my parents at times, who purely from love tried to fix me, and not good. Or I went to my friends and felt either like a burden or like I wasn't being met how I wanted to. And I was not showing up as a father or a leader or just a partner or a friend in the uh, capacity that I could. And when I look back now, and when I talk to my wife as a bit of a litmus test as to who I am, have we still got some challenges in our relationship? Yeah, we've been with each other since we were 18. That's like over half of our life together. Is it still hard to be a dad? Yeah, it can be a pain in the neck at times. Do I still have some self-doubts when it comes to building my business? Yeah, for sure. But am I a different person to who I was back then? Completely. Like, I look the same, I talk the same, but I feel completely different. And if I saw it on a scale of the days where I'm in melancholy or the days where like life is hard, that was maybe 80% of the time
Mm.
8 years ago, and it's maybe 20% of the time now.
So if somebody's listening and they're
Mm.
intrigued, not ready to jump, but it's, a little curious, let me try
Mm.
this thing out. Do you have any tools or rituals or suggestions that somebody could try to see if it feels good, feels right, if it works for them?
Yeah, so I think I would say, firstly, if you have that spark of curiosity in you, when people come and like approach me about whatever I can do to help them, like just that act of stepping into something that you haven't done before is 95% of the work. 90% of the shift will come just by moving into something. So I think the first thing I would say is drop the need for the first thing to be the right thing or the perfect thing or the thing that's going to fix you. Like, just drop that and just see it as an opportunity to start a way of being different, just a small step. Because often for people, I think it can be overwhelming and fear kicks in. And yeah, it can just be like, I know I want to change. So I would say, like, give yourself permission to just do anything, try something. Kind of doesn't matter if it's going to be good, just try it. And then the second thing I would say is, if you are someone who wants to try something with someone else or other people, find someone um, who gives you energy. Find someone who you feel good around and that you trust. And that might take the shape of a coach or a therapist or a community leader, or it could just be a friend. But someone who you feel really hears you and sees you, and that you believe that you can grow with. So that's what I would say the next step is. And somewhere along the journey, you'll probably come across people that you have big resistance to, and that you don't want to work with. But there's another part of you that, because of that, you feel compelled to work with them. That will probably happen. But I would say, to begin with, maybe start with the small step, and the small step comes from finding someone that if you're feeling worried or scared or anything like that, just recognize that actually that's a signal that you're stepping into the possibility of growing and changing. Can't really grow or change if you don't feel fear.
And how can people get in touch with you?
So you can visit the Mensch website, bemoremensch.com. I'm sure that will be in the description. And you can reach out and email me through there. And then if I'm not on normal social media channels, but I do have an active LinkedIn profile. So I kind of post content on LinkedIn, and I also have a weekly newsletter. So you can sign up to the weekly newsletter, or if you want, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. But if you have this calling to contact me, and we can have a call. Like, I'm really open to talking to anyone. And actually, even if I'm not right for you or Mensch isn't right for you, like, I speak to loads of people that I put in touch with other people I know as well. So if you just want some help in steering you in the right direction, then we can have a call. If you are someone, and especially if you are a man who is sitting in this place right now of want to change, like, there's more to life and I don't quite know what to do, and you do have this part of you that doesn't quite know where to turn and is resisting it, I want you to remember that you aren't just doing this for yourself. Take it from me. You are doing it for your loved ones, for your colleagues. You are doing it for the people and things that are most important to you, because when you learn how to live a life more aligned with what you need and what you want, and more aligned with who you really are, it creates magic for the people around you. It certainly did for me. So take that step and find the people or things that you need in your life to support you to do it.
Thank you. I'm a big believer in women's groups, and maybe I'll talk about that someday. But now you've got the male perspective. So thank you, Joshua Fineman, for being here. I appreciate what you do. For our audience, if you are a guy who thinks this sounds like what you need, check out Joshua's website and see if it's a fit. And if you'd like a community for men and women, check out Fantasia. So thank you all for being here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share the love, and I'll see you next week.
Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Spotify so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, why not show your love with a review? Thanks. See you next week.